Alright, it's been a while since I've posted any videos to YouTube, but I am constantly getting questions about Double Trouble and how we built it and if I have plans for it. I don't have plans, but I will give you guys a few specifics of how we built it and discuss a few mistakes we made, things I wouldn't do if I did it over again, and maybe you guys can go out there and build one of your own. So it started out as a 1983 Sears two-seat cart with a 3.5 horse Tecumseh. The front is still mostly stock, with the exceptions that we have added high-speed bearings to the wheels because we were burning up the stock type. We've relocated the steering to the center, so when Nathan is by himself acting like a fool, he is buckled in the center and is less likely to have his arms come out of the cage. We've mounted a hydraulic master cylinder to the front, and I have a link there that I can adjust the travel with. Obviously there are two engines in the back. They were from Harbor Freight and sold as 7 horsepower. They're 212cc Predators. I had to notch the frame here to make room for the sprocket. We have a solid axle. These 3 blocks are holding the bearings, and they're notched because they were standing up and I had them notched to clear the engines. We were running a taller tire to begin with, but decided to switch to these smaller ones so that we would spin all the time rather than not spin and go fast. It still goes plenty fast. It runs 38, and that's governed to that. We could change out the flywheels and speed the motors up, but I chose that just to stick with reliable lower RPM use. It's plenty fun right now. For drive, we're running a stock type 13 tooth clutch in the front, 61 tooth in the back. I've made some chain tensioners out of skate wheels with just some simple springs on them. We had a lot of issues with keeping the chain on it. We still do, and that kind of leads to my first thing I wouldn't do the same. I'm using a 3/4 inch axle. The next, if I were to do this over again, I'd use a 1 inch axle. The chain tensioners help a lot, but the axle flexes sometimes, and that was causing us to lose chains. And I'm also using cheap chain, which at some point I need to buy some better chain. I have to lube this chain regularly, so we'll run it for 15-20 minutes, and then I need to lube the chain again. Especially if we run it on the road. We only get a few miles out of it at top speed. It actually, we've broke the chain several times and patched it back together, and when I take it apart I find that the oil is actually burned inside of the chain. So the chain gets hot and gums up, and then it starts to lock up, and once it does that, it's all over. For mounting of the engines, I just have some used 1 inch square tubing that's running across the frame, and I've drilled holes in it to mount the motors to. Real simple. For brake, we're running a single hydraulic caliper that pinches on the center sprocket. And tires we're running in the back are 13 by 5 6s. They are Carlisle Turf Savers, although they rip the grass up plenty well. You may notice that the cage is covered in booger welds. My backyard is so furrowed up from where it used to be gardened that the cart spends a lot of time in the air, and it's actually been breaking the tubing, and so it just gets broken and we weld it back up. Fortunately, it makes all kinds of noise when it breaks, so you know pretty quickly that you've broken a weld. So hopefully that covers most of the questions I get about Double Trouble. We're going to move the T out of the way and pull it out and let Nathan ride it for a bit. 1, 2, 3.